I think, I am sure they have these cells who focus, but more or less sometimes I feel that this becomes more of a ceremonial parade rather than actually concerted effort to see, identify some 10, 20, 50 ventures and really help them and make an enabling environment. Friend, one of my last point is, which you all know, you see, you can't become an entrepreneur suddenly by passing from a B school. You can't. It is a spirit. It is a determination. It is an experience which you should start feeling once you are in the higher education itself. You all know Government of India is been seriously discussing, and very soon they will bring out a policy on vocationalization of higher education. You understand my point, what I am saying? That higher education, people do masters, this, that, they are on the road because they do not know what is a financial statement, what is profit and loss account, what is this bird called EBITDA. So there is a complete disconnect between what you study and what you expect should you become an entrepreneur. I am sorry to say, friends, see, I am in ASCII. Now I am under no conduct rules of the All India Service. I can say now. Sir, don't mind. In my IAS academy where we are trained for 2 years, we are not trained on corporate finance. Stuff like capital budgeting. What is IRR? What is NPV? What is economic, techno-economic assessment of a project? Otherwise, it is not about technology. At the end of the day, I need 10% IRR, at least 15% IRR, which is at least more than the WACC, the weighted average cost of capital. Otherwise, I am in the business. We are not taught. And once we come in the service, I become CEO, MD. Then I am looking at the financial statements. What is this? CFO says, nahi sahab, yahan sign kar do, ho gaya kaam khatam. So these are the issues that we in India need to focus in higher education in the last semesters on human resource management, inventory management, financial management to an extent so that you start getting that flavor of it. And many people fail because finances cannot be managed. It is not a rocket science, but it is a great practical skill which you can only learn through academics and through practice. But academics part is nil. If you train on environment, you don't talk beyond environment. So that is a great thing which our country, I am sure, they are giving attention to. And I only wish that your recommendations, as Dr. Bagchi said, will go a long way in formulating a very enabling and holistic environment for our young budding entrepreneurs to have successful ventures. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your enlightening speech and your thought of SST. We'll probably have more discussion on that throughout the workshop. Now I call upon Dr. Praveen Arora to give his welcome address.
Yeah, good morning. Distinguished delegates on the dais, Shri Jayesh Ranjanji, IT Secretary to the Government of Telangana, Shri Ravikantji, DG ASCII, Professor Nirmalya Bagchi, and distinguished participants from government, scientific agencies, young entrepreneurs, startup industry, academia, scholars, my colleagues from DST, DSAR, and ladies and gentlemen. In fact, it gives me a great pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of Department of Science and Technology and on my behalf to this one-day workshop of national importance on growth issues for startups in India. In fact, this workshop is second in series organized under the umbrella theme, STI for Make in India, as Professor Bagchi was telling, as a part of DST's Academy Aspire. The first such workshop, we organized in April 2015 at New Delhi. And here the main emphasis was how to bring in STI, especially science, technology and innovation perspective for the success of Make in India. Because we still see that a lot is talked about Make in India, but science and technology or innovation is subassumed, that is not very explicit or said very categorically how innovation, science and technology would play a role. So we thought that let us heighten that and enlighten, kind of, and have a debate among the scholars so that we can put up before some kind of in Make in India, the department or who is channelizing, if they are going to evolve a framework for Make in India, how it has to be. So science and technology should be at the center stage, and that is how the emerging and the developed economies are coming up, by taking science, technology and innovation at the center stage. So that's our motive, and we, from that workshop onwards, we have thought that we will continue a series of workshop, on STI for Make in India. And in fact, it is heartening here to mention that as per the latest news I was reading, on Monday's newspaper, in fact in Economic Times, and I saw that Niti Aayog is contemplating formulating an action plan with focus on technology in areas such as renewable energy, agriculture, for taking forward this initiative of Make in India. So I was elated to see that somewhere it has made a dent, because whatever we could draw that through one day workshop, we passed on to the various stakeholders, including the Niti Aayog, and it was also, I think, put on the PMO website and the Facebook and others. So they all are aware of what is going on, and suddenly we see that something is happening on this side. So that's very elated. I thought I should share it with all of you. And in fact, the present workshop is in response to the new initiative Startup India and Stand Up India to promote entrepreneurship as announced by PM in his speech in 2015, Independence Day speech in 2015. And we see this workshop today is a continuation of the earlier initiative in complementing the manufacturing or services sector for job creation and growth of the economy. In fact, this calls for promoting young entrepreneurs, young companies, startup business in view of the large pool of the young population and market size. So in fact, if you look at, there is still, as we were talking yesterday evening, there is still not very formal definition of a startup, but there are conjunctures or some understanding what the startup is, In fact, they represent startup, if I see, and if you look in the literature, in fact, I see it as represents the new sources of growth, driven by new ideas, research and innovation that build innovative products and have a relatively large, considerably large or global impact in terms of employment generation, GDP and exports probably. And innovation thus becomes the key engine or the driving force of these startups. And I feel that it's very appropriate to quote here Peter Drucker, which says that in his quote that innovation is the specific instrument of entrepreneurship, the act that endows resources with a new capacity to create wealth, and unquote. So bringing innovation has become a very important in today's context, as we see the global economy shifting from the industrial economy towards an innovation economy. So integrating science and technology and innovation as a principal agent of transformation for the growth of startups is quite challenging. And equally challenging for the governments is to create an innovation ecosystem so as to align STI with the promotion of startups for stimulating productivity and growth. So this is what, in a nutshell, we are looking at. So again, we are coming to focus of science and technology, whether it is for Make in India or whether it is for synergizing startups and to take forward this kind of initiative. So as we see that the innovation, science and technology landscape, is becoming important. So it is wise to have, in fact, a reality check where India stands in terms of R&D and innovation, so that our policies or our framework should not ignore that as a counter, and then we should not simply start aping the other economies, So we have to understand first our realities. And I here bring to your notice that despite our consistent increase in absolute terms of India's investment in R&D, but in fact the ratio of R&D to GDP has still not touched even 1%. So for past 2 decades, and if you see the China, it is 2.08, or in the US 2.81, and if you see the Korea, going even surpassing 4%. So this is where our strength or capabilities in terms of science, technology and innovation. So when we talk of taking forward, so we have to take that factor, into consideration, that, and government still is a key player by contributing 70% of the resources toward R&D. So this R&D innovation, while private sector R&D participation being a low intensity affair so far. So this is in complete contrast to the other emerging and developed economies. So this is what our structure of NIS or National Innovation System is as on today. So now you imagine how the startup would fit into and what policies we should now drive and how we should stimulate STI. So there becomes a question and probe how to take forward this. So this fact cannot be ignored. Another thing that in India about as I know from various sources that around 1,000 startups are being established every year, as against 6,000 in China and 60,000 in the US. So this is again one kind of an inside benchmark where we stand. As we all know that we stand 81 in Global Innovation Index out of 141 countries, and we have seen that our Indian National Innovation System, there seems to be a kind of a fragmentation and disconnect between the production system and the knowledge or the support system itself. So this is evidence not only from the World Competitiveness Report, but also from the report which we brought out, the department brought out as a first ever National Innovation Survey report, which clearly highlighted. So that triggered us to think about how we can align knowledge system or science, technology and innovation system with the production system. And that's how we started with our first workshop in this year, April, and then we see a series going on with different themes. But then the main central theme is connecting STI in various modes and pathways towards growth and productivity. So despite the challenges, in fact, however, return on investment on R&D is quite impressive in India as compared to other advanced economies. Example could be taken of a Mars orbiter mission, which got accomplished at 11% of the cost in USA. Or if you talk about healthcare sectors, particularly the vaccines. So India is exporting 2/3 of the vaccines at the global scale, and with low cost. So that speaks of our capabilities in few segments and areas, and not to belittle our success, entrepreneurial success story of IT and e-commerce, which has rather catapult or spur the moment in the startups as well. We see that same thing happening here, and I see that some report even say India ranks 3rd in the world with 12,000 something odd number of startups, and it is estimated to have 1 lakh startups with 500 billion combined mark value by 2050. By 2025, sorry. So this is where, so despite the deficits or despite all those NIS challenges, we still have a hope, and we are quite upbeat on this front. And obviously as all know, Bangalore city has been rated quite high in terms of innovation system for the startups, and probably best among the 20 best startups, the cities, it is ranked among. So as per Global Startups Ranking Report 2015, and we all know that the Karnataka state government is it announced or it is contemplating? Not yet. So it is contemplating to tap its vibrant startup ecosystem by bringing out a separate policy on startups. And similarly, we heard today that Telangana government is also going to shortly announce with its own startup policy, and maybe other states like Chhattisgarh may also follow soon. So this is where the spate of efforts, but the idea is how to synergize these policies with the other issues of land, labor, laws, infrastructure, governance, etc., both for manufacturing and service. So this became one of the key concern or issues. It is very easy to maybe bring out policies, but then they have to interconnect with the other pillars of the economy or the other spheres where it will integrate, and they should have a synergistic effect rather than some kind of antagonistic effect. So I would like to now tell something about the ministry, since from the government, what we are doing in this area to promote, and what are some kind of programs. Of course, there are key speakers who will dwell more in detail, but then for your information, the Ministry of Science and Technology has been continuously encouraging and promoting technology-based entrepreneurship, including knowledge-based startups through various schemes. So when I say Ministry of Science and Technology, that includes both the departments, primarily the Department of Science and Technology, the Department of Scientific and Industrial Research, and as well as the Department of Biotechnology. In fact, we have been channelizing it through the technology business incubators, science park, and in terms of a very biotechnology specific, we have a BIORAC, which is called Biotechnology Industry Research Assistance Council. And there is a program called PRISM, promoting innovation in individuals, startups and SMEs. And also at the grassroots level, there is also an agency under DST, which is called National Innovation Foundation, for which scouts and which assimilates and then see to it the innovations are taken up or channelized further from the various individuals in the country. And as on date, the DST has promoted nearly 80 TBIs and with an outcome of more than 2,000 new and innovative startup companies have been formed. So maybe more detail when our key speakers would be telling you more about it. So apart from this, the Ministry continues to strive in enriching and sustaining STI ecosystem through various policy measures as well. So needless to mention the STI policy 2003, which also has an encompassing role and says that how we should promote innovation across all the sectors and in all the segments and connect various pillars of the economy. So that's a very binding statement, but the implementation always remains a key challenge and an issue, But we have policies which always talk of synergistic effects of taking all these stakeholders and pillars of the economy along and binding it through innovation. So one such policy, and then we have a lot of promotional schemes here, which through which we are engaging industry partnerships and putting up capacity building, S&T infrastructure, and leveraging international collaboration, etc. to see that this kind of a milieu, science, technology, innovation milieu is created where all the industry, doing research or even the thriving startups to come and, join that. So this is kind of a milieu we drive, apart from just simply promoting startups because ultimately it is an innovation ecosystem which will drive. It is not just merely forming a small company and then seeing that it should survive on a longer period, but then it is an ecosystem which make it to survive or to take it forward on a different path. And needless to mention that Government of India has announced, recently, as you may be aware, the Atal Innovation Mission with rupees around 150 crore to promote a culture of entrepreneurship and innovation in the country, and a mechanism known as SETU, Self-Employed and Talent Utilization, has been conceived with the provision of 1,000 crores, to support all aspects of startup business and other self-employed activities, particularly in technology-driven areas for engaging youth and for inclusive and sustainable growth of the country. In fact, the central government is also on the anvil of coming up with a startup policy. Maybe this month or maybe the early January could be, is targeted. And we see also there are continuous changes which are happening in other spate of policies like in education, research and innovation space, and we saw that some draft IPR policy being floated. We see there is a separate policy for SMEs also on the anvil, and we see a lot of things happening on the regulation side. So these are the other concurrent things which are happening to see that the vibrancy of the ecosystem and the dynamics of the ecosystem is, being maintained for harnessing the growth opportunities for all the stakeholders, including the startups. So here in this context, some key questions, what I feel that I should throw here, and maybe some of you, the key speakers, may be answering, but I thought it is wise enough to understand from this context. So far the success of startups has largely been focused on the gaps, what I perceive is in the supply chain management of the distribution network in the economy, mainly leveraging ICT, and they are connecting some dots, and then they say using ICT some startup has come, maybe it is a Snapdeal, Flipkart or Oyo Homes. Of course they have become successful, probably there was a demand, there is a market and there is a need, and that's how it is. But we don't see actually the science-driven kind of a startups, taking shape, or in a real true sense, technology-driven startups, happening. So this is where startups should need to focus on, and how to drive that. The ICT leveraging is just one, because there's time to market is very short, and then they need not have to wait. The result starts coming, returns start coming very quickly. So there is an equal challenge, for how to drive science-driven or research-intensive startups, And also the startups had to be more inclusive. Like when I say inclusive is so far, I feel that from the literature we read and from the interactions we have from the various stakeholders, they are urban-centric. What about the rural masses, How to connect the problems and issues facing that, and who will do that, and how to do that, and then what a kind of a frugal kind of innovations, which would permeate a large section of the society and bridge that rural and urban